Redditors have met a former crush years later. How did it work out? Story 1. I discovered she was overweight and ugly, and I knew I was too. Story 2. She was at a house party peeing, and 2 drunken guys cheered her on while she was between 2 parked cars. They then took a Y inside the house. Story 3. I had a crush on her during my freshman and sophomore years. When she kissed me at the end of my sophomore year, I didn't return the kiss and essentially fled from her severe social anxiety. I changed schools after going missing for the summer, not because of the kiss, but when classes resumed, I walked to a school every day for half the year in the hopes of getting the courage to approach her. Every day I failed, and she clearly grew weary of waiting and ended up with another guy, so I gave up. She shows up at my school at the end of a senior year to see a guy named Sami, who literally jumped into my arms and gave me her phone number. We have been together for 7 years. In November, I proposed to her about a week ago, and she accepted, but the proposal was more about the ring I wanted to have made for her social awkwardness. For the win story, it turns out that she is a crystal. Story 5. I went to an underground rave, and then my wife and I tag-teamed her. She then attends our holiday gatherings. Well, that worked out pretty well for you. Story 6. When boot camp ended, my high school sweetie left me out of boredom and married a salesman or whoever. I saw her in a laundromat. Healing vaccination hating wing nut now, I avoided a bullet. Story 7. She got hotter and I leveled off, but she still wouldn't play with my willy, which was even a Taco Bell. Story 8. Story 8. My wife's ex-boyfriend messaged her on Facebook at random one day, and on day 2 she cheated on me with him. Her once adorable bum had doubled in size, and she had 2 kids. Apparently, he knocked her up. Not my ex-wife, who is unemployed and lives with his mother. I have children who are 3 and 5 years old, so they don't fully comprehend it, but I'm hoping that in the long run, when they realize which parent was truly there for them, my son will still say hurtful things like, "I don't want to live with you anymore. I want to live with mommy when he's angry." It's my son's first week of kindergarten, and navigating her through the process has. I was chasing some girls in high school, but if I saw them now, I don't see the big deal. The girls I wasn't chasing, but should have been in the past, are all incredibly beautiful, funny, and intelligent. If I could go back in time, I would punch 15-year-old Mia in the bean bag. They've been married for. After 8 years, I think my 2 kids are doing pretty well. She was in my kindergarten class and my 3rd grade class, and I showed her my boxers. She was then my girlfriend, but I found out she had cheated on me with my best friend, and I saw him show her his underwear. Needless to say, I moved on from that incident, but if you're out there, Olivia or Matt, darn you, story 12 crossed paths with my high school crush because she's no longer straight. Story 13, and we're sitting across the aisle from each other on the same plane. We enjoyed tacos and then carried out the deed in my car behind Taco Bell. Since then, we haven't spoken because of the intriguing marketing tactic from Taco Bell. Story 14. I had a love on the high school quarterback, whose family was royalty at my local high school. In terms of popularity, this guy wasn't just out of my league, he was out of my stratosphere. Fast forward 10 years, and he's newly single, and looks me up in the book, flirting and confessing that I had a major crush on him at school. It's a date, big score for Mia, and I know that when I get to his place, he's living in a 300-square-foot house. He was still driving that '89 pickup from high school, talking about how he was king-worthy, and he was obviously unable to understand why the real world didn't follow suit. Can you believe Reddit that he had to prove himself? The man's boss had the audacity to eat dinner, grill a delicious steak, and undoubtedly tell story 15. I think I completely creeped him out with my staring and pitiful attempts to get him to have coffee with me and such, when I was in my first year of school. That was 8 years ago, and I've significantly grown as a person since then. I hadn't even considered him in years when I finally ran into him, so I was actually thrilled to find out. When I ran into him, we had a conversation like this. "Hey crush, how's it going? Hey crush, how are you? Thank you, how are you? Thank you, how are you?" And then it just spiraled into awkwardness from there. He worked at a store I was planning to go to. I thought I could finally have a normal conversation with crush. You'll see I'm not a creepy weirdo anymore. Story 17. I had a crush on this girl in grade school for the first and second play dates, video games, action figures, and life was good. I bought her a present at 5 and 10 because I thought she would like it, and it was a ring. She was extremely embarrassed and fled to her hotel, which I haven't forgotten since. Story 16. Had drinks, went back to her hotel, and essentially stayed there for 2 days watching Netflix marathon, and were probably just chilling. That she changed schools for other reasons. The following year, she graduated from college, worked for a company in my hometown, and worked toward getting accepted to medical school. One night, we went out for drinks with friends, and who should have come over but her lovely music taste, smiles, and jokes made me smitten. A few more years later, I gave her another ring, and she did not flee happily for a number of years. Narrative 18. I was 12 when I last saw her. I found her online when I was 35. I wrote her a letter to say hello and ask how she was doing. I also included my email address and cell phone number. 3 weeks later, I received a message on Facebook from her saying, "I'm fine, married with twin boys, don't contact me again." 6 months later, my parents get a phone. I contacted a person from a friend's cell phone who said he was her ex-husband and wanted to talk to me. He told me that she was married to a very controlling husband and that I should be cautious. I thanked him for alerting me and hung up. Since story 19, I have avoided him. She gained weight and became a bothersome character, and 20 had a major love on her when we worked as waiters together, moved away for about 6 years, and then ended up back where we met by chance. I remember how beautiful she looked, and we kept in touch via emails and social media during that time, but we didn't see each other for about 2 months. After we met again, we started dating without planning it, fell in love, and moved in together after about 6 months. I got down. They got married just over 2 years ago, and it was the best day of my life. I'm grateful to everyone who helped legalize gay marriage, even though it's not illegal. Story 21. She works at a supermarket nearby. I said hello once, but I haven't used it since because I'm not the best at repeated social interactions. Story 22. She didn't recognize me or. Story 23. Hadn't seen her in 15 years, met online, decided to have dinner together, married for 5 years, and had a child. Perhaps they pretended not to, but who knows? It seemed like such a downer. He was my sister's best friend, and I was smitten with him from 2nd to 10th school. We have been dating for about a year, and I am incredibly happy for him. Story 25. I met her when I was 13 years old, and we now have the most incredible relationship I've ever experienced. We were completely enamored. Fast forward to when we were both 23. She had a child from a prior marriage, but I didn't mind. She got married and cheated on me, attempting to collect child support for a daughter. I wouldn't suggest story 26. About a year ago, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize and began chatting with them. To my surprise, it was her. She told me she used to write poems about me in study hall. It hasn't progressed further than that, but we do occasionally chat and catch up. She was a pretty girl in my study hall, and I always tried to steal glances, check her out and all that, but I would never have dared to ask her out anyway. I was a shy, awkward child, but when I was around 10 years old, I gave her my favorite Lion King trading card because I liked her. After her moms got new jobs, we stopped seeing each other. She was definitely my first big crush, even though sometimes all night long when our moms were working together at the cockcheck of the restaurant my dad valued. She was really different the next time I saw her, even though she was still very cute. We chatted for a while and caught up, and she showed me pictures of her son, who was apparently pregnant when she was 17 and had a lovely baby boy that her mom looked after so she could finish school. It was a pleasant experience, especially learning about her activities over the years. Story 28. I went out for drinks and remained obsessed with her, and I was given a chance. However, I wasted and embarrassed myself by talking about how much I liked her as a child and praising her qualities as if they had existed years earlier. I also talked about how crazy and awesome it was that I was finally getting my chance. It was really sad that I didn't realize how badly I messed up until I woke up and sobered up. I knew right away that I wouldn't be given a chance. I'm going to be polite, but I've made a mistake that kept running across her face. I'm cringing with you, story 29. I was crushed hard and competed for a really cute girl in college, but when she moved in with him, I closed the door on things. Years later, she saw me out on a second chance based on her reactions and responses from the previous night. Facebook, because apparently I was the one who escaped, which resulted in a back and forth mostly about Central Trist, where we decided that our best behaviors were fighting or sleeping together. We went through this cycle every 3 months until we took a 4-year break because of mutual animosity. Story 30. With a trip to the clinic. I was completely smitten during our brief college relationship, but it lasted only a few weeks before he made the decision that he wanted to consider his options and those of numerous other women. We met at a bar 7 years later. We had both moved to the same city, and I had recently experienced a difficult breakup, so he persuaded me to allow him to take care of both my lady garden and my broken heart. It turned out that all he had at Harvard was sexually transmitted diseases. Story 31 attempted to give me an ultimatum in high school saying, "Do this or we're over." Her relationship ended 10 or so years later, and when I visit her in a lark, I discover that she is sleeping with a divorced man who is attempting to persuade him to leave his wife and daughter. Her apartment was also filthy. I'm no prize, but I tried to destroy exactly 0 families. Story 32 saw her at the 10-year high school reunion. She was a little heavier than she had been in high school, but she was still attractive, and she was there with her Ivy League fiancé. These two facts together made me think that I should go see my high school crush at our reunion too, but whatever. At one point, when we were being recognized for something, she leaned over and said, "I remember what a crush you had on." First of all, I couldn't really react because of the situation at hand. Secondly, I didn't see any Taco Bell-style invitation in her apology. In fact, it seemed like she was just controlling me. She was there with her fiancé, whom we had previously discussed briefly, and it was fantastic, so for some reason, it really irritated me. I just gave her a blank look, shrugged, and walked away. I wish I had made a clever comeback, but that's my only regret. I haven't seen her since, but I hope she's happy and everything. Your response sounds ideal, but I think she could wait to tell you that, and you just gave her a meh. Sometimes lessons are more. Story 33 reconnected with the one that got away. We were in high school when we first started dating, around the age of 17. The first day we saw each other was wonderful, and it seemed like we were reconnecting beautifully, hooked up, whispering sweet nothings, and having a great night. However, reality set in, and we went on a road trip together when she started acting a little crazy. She had moved unexpectedly, which devastated me, but by chance, a mutual friend had reconnected with her when we were about 23. Probably the source of the conclusions that we usually remember the things we want to about people. I always considered getting back in touch with her. We tried to do so one last time, but she went completely crazy and called or texted me about a year ago. We reconnected probably 3 years ago, and I was relieved to ignore or remove her number. Story 34. We spoke daily during our 3 years of high school, and 20 years later she didn't remember me. My story is 35 years old. I met a girl 7 years ago who was smart and beautiful, and I was stupid and ugly. We clicked as friends, but that was all. We stopped working together, drifted apart naturally, and she compared every girl I met to her. I didn't meet anyone as. We remained Facebook friends and eventually decided to get together again because she hadn't seen the latest Star Trek movie, which I thought was terrible as a huge Trek nerd. I wasn't exactly trying to hide my feelings at the time, and we got on like a house on fire. You might think I put her on a pedestal, but I think it was pretty reasonable and realistic. She already trusted me and knew I was a good person, but I was much more mature and actually paid more attention to how I looked. She was also very different, but she still made me fall in love with her again. After a few days, we became official, and after a few coincidences, we moved in together after a month of dating, and I was able to work from her place more effectively than I could at home after 5 months, and I suddenly felt the need to marry this girl. I was in my pajamas when she jumped out of bed and proposed to me that same summer, and we are now waiting around. 1 year and 3 days after we began dating, we were married, have since purchased a London apartment, and are living a happy life together. We get along well and don't argue because It's been a pretty crazy ride. Story 36. I had a huge crush on a guy in high school who was a complete jerk to me. Fast forward a few years, and I have a terrible job serving from a hotline in a cafe on his very campus. We both know that we're on each other's side if there's a problem that wasn't caused by the other person's malicious act. We just keep calmly communicating and try our best to help each other. I want to cry when I see him coming down the line because he looks amazing and is obviously doing well in college. At the time, I was in a relationship with my high school sweetheart, had just found out I was pregnant, felt stuck in that terrible job, and was having a rough day. I thought I looked like a hot mess, and Crush saw me, recognized me, and waited until it wasn't a line anymore and began talking to me. He lied and said that I looked fantastic and that he was happy to see me. He gave me a big hug and said that he was sorry for being such a jerk in high school. He also listened to me cry about my life for a while, even though I hadn't planned to, but he threw me off so hard that I couldn't stop. At the end of the conversation, he gave me another hug and told me to keep my chin up and to add him on Facebook so we could hang out sometime. For a variety of regrettable reasons, I never accepted his offer, but he really helped me that day, and his generosity opened my eyes. If you're reading this, thank you, Strat. You changed my life that day. Story 37. Even though I'm a gay adult male, I used to have a major crush on this funny girl in high school. Figure 38. I had a major crush on this girl for the majority of high school, and in retrospect, I'm pretty sure she felt the same way. She was smart, sardonic, and had a bomb body. I re-met her at a party a few years ago, but it turns out she wasn't straight the entire time. The only girl in high school I was dying to date was gay herself. When I heard someone shout my name in a bar, I turned around and saw a very heavy-set girl smile broadly as she walked towards me. I stared at her in confusion for a moment before realizing it was the same girl plus at least 150 pounds of her. Her happy demeanor kind of vanished for a while, and she realized it couldn't even recognize her at first. I imagine it happened to her a lot, and I wish it was her. I still feel horrible about how I reacted to seeing the attractive, well-liked cheerleader who broke my heart. But it's not true. She was one of the sweetest, kindest people you could ever meet. She was also extremely thin throughout high school, so I believe she may have been one of the few obese people who truly had a medical condition. She's now married to a wealthy man and has a large family, so that's a good story 39 had. Throughout high school, I had a crush on this girl, but nothing ever happened because we both had significant others at the time. Fast forward to my senior year of college, when I happened to run into my college town. I had recently broken up with my girlfriend, and my high school crush was snagging me hard. She was still really cool and even more attractive than I remembered, and the last thing I remember is brushing my teeth and only my boxers at her place. Woke up the following day, still in my boxers, shirtless, and told me she was ready to leave, but we didn't do the deed. It was a sad, sad day for my pecker story 40, and I was perplexed as to why I had ever had a crush on him. I said hello and moved on. If you liked this video, please remember to take a look at this following YouTube video. The algorithm truly believes that you enjoy it.